All right. Hey, this is new. I know you guys out there, you're so used to just Chuck. And I thought, man, I got to bring someone else in here. I've been chatting with a lot of friends lately, and I realized that, there's a lot of other shit I want to do. And what we're doing here with Chuck's Rawversations is not necessarily comic related. It's raw conversations with people. And so they're going to be about a lot of different things. Today is my good buddy, Ben. Um, this isn't just some dude that I met on the internet. Ben, say hi. Sorry.
Hey, how's it going?
Ben isn't just some dude that I met on the internet because we both like the same things. Ben and I go way the fuck back. We're going back like 20 years. Am I correct? We met in
Over
2000?
Over 20, I think. At
Yeah.
this point, I think we met in '99 or 2000.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we met in 2000, but I even know that I saw you around because we grew up in the same small town. I saw you around a lot. And of course, your mother was my teacher, Miss Dobson. So, and she was
Shout out to Jane Dobson.
Yeah, right. Shout out. What's up, girl?
What's up, fam?
So this is still going to be completely fucking raw. This is still Chuck, but today we're going to talk about something very raw and very different. Definitely not about comics. As you saw by the name, the beating that changed his life. This is really going to be raw. It may not be for everybody, but especially in today's climate, we both felt like this was so important to get out there and to talk about. So I had to do this. So thanks, Ben, first off, for being here and for sharing your story. I know how I was on the other end of what happened to you, and so I didn't get the insider view, and I'm actually hearing some of this stuff for the first time.
Yep. Yeah. Well, thanks for being the other side of this conversation, because we talked yesterday about it, and I'd made a video because it's the 10-year anniversary on the 26th of June, 2 days ago.
10-year anniversary of what? Let's get started there.
Well, a lot of things. So it was a G20 meeting happening in Toronto on June 26, 2010, under the conservative Harper government. And there was, it also happened to be the largest mass incarceration in Canadian history.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure how they measure that. That's the thing. So I don't know what context that fits in. We got a lot of messy history in Canada. But
yeah, we do.
I'm just going to go with the headline, like it's...
Yeah, and that's important to mention, is that so often other countries will be like, oh, Canada's so sweet, or even we will take that on. But we got to be honest, we've done some egregious shit, too.
We got some dirt under our fingernails.
Yeah, it's important for us to admit that. So I'm glad that we're also talking about this. But so as you guys know, this is going to get really dark and really, really tough. So first off, let's go back and because this, as we say in the title, it's not a joke. This changed Ben's life. And I think it changed the lives of the people around him too. A lot of us took this shit a lot more seriously because it was like, oh, dude, that was fucked up. So why don't we learn a little bit more about Ben and who you were before this incident?
Sure. Okay. So small town white kid, living in Ontario. Grew up raised by a single mom. My mom remarried when I was a kid. My stepdad and I didn't get along so well, so I kind of got a taste of, what it's like to live under a sort of dominator. My dad was a do as I say, not as I do kind of dude. He wasn't good with the words, more with the hands at certain times. Obviously that informed my my life. I learned fairly early on that I don't do well with being told what to do, and I can take a hit. So those two things are very important to understand before I get started.
Well, especially when you title this "The Beating That Changed His Life," and you know that the guy grew up.
There's a lot of beatings. They didn't change.
Yeah. That wasn't that wasn't the first one. So yeah.
So yeah. Being a white kid in a small town, I didn't really appreciate how police work, how the system works. I was kind of jaded, kind of, took it all as at face value, to a certain degree.
Well, and is it a fair statement to say that, especially in small town Ontario, the cops were kind of a joke? Like, you really weren't, for the most part, afraid. I remember one incident personally where I was like, "Ooh, what you're doing's not cool." But that's one single incident in all of my 32 years in Canada. So,
yeah,
and
well,
obviously before your incident as well.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I think for me, it's like now I can look back and I can see things in my childhood that should have been red flags, but because they were just part of the world as it was, and when you're young and naive, you kind of just, if someone says don't worry about it, you just don't worry about it. You don't inquire any deeper until you get older and you're like, and you start seeing patterns. You're like, what is going on here? So Jackson's Point, where I came from, that's where I lived the majority of my childhood. It's near a native reserve. So, I experienced a very different treatment of people from the reserve than the folks that lived in town. And that was by the cops and by the kids in school and the playground, how the teachers dealt with them, how they disciplined us. But again, I just kind of, you don't assume that something's wrong until you kind of get older and you realize, you start hearing stories. And, what happened to me, kind of like just eyes wide open, I started looking at everybody else differently. So that was definitely the changing moment. That's why when people ask me, what it was that changed, I say it was the day I woke up. I was kind of floating in a dream for a long time. I'd had struggles, obviously, but I never felt like the system could just turn on me. I always felt like it was my friend. And clearly that wasn't the case after the fact.
Yeah. So 2010.
Mm-hmm.
For myself, I was actually, this was in June, so not yet. I was going to be married in a couple months, and officially married, just to kind of put where I was at the same time, because obviously I'm gonna sprinkle in how I felt about things as I heard from Ben what was going on. Which again, it's raw. So some of the things I felt at that time, obviously I don't feel now, and I was wrong about, and I want to broadcast them because it's important that we show the evolution of where we come from and of these things that happened. Because
that makes two of us, man.
Yeah, because what happened to Ben was fucked up, but my reaction was almost equally fucked up. Luckily Ben wasn't there for that, but it doesn't take anything away, and I feel like it's something that I'm gonna, as this goes, I'm gonna have to express just so that I can get that off my shoulders. As much as he and I are fucking cool and we're totally good together and we're brothers, like in every way we're brothers, it's still important for the healing process to be like, so I thought this and said this and I was a douche. So
I think it's also important for people to hear that, because I think there's going to be a lot of people who have a standard reaction. So the most common question I get when I tell people that I was a victim of police brutality, which is really what happened. When I tell people that, the knee-jerk reaction from anybody over 25 is, and obviously this isn't everybody, I'm generalizing, but 9 times out of 10.
Can I guess?
Yeah, sure.
What did you do wrong?
Bingo.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, what did you do wrong? Oh, motherfucker. It's so hilarious, too. And honestly, guys, that's just not scripted. Like, seriously. I was just like, I know what these assholes said. Yeah, and I probably thought it at the time.
And for the record, like, anybody listening to this, if you hear someone gets in trouble with the cops and they don't seem like the kind of person that would do that, and your knee-jerk question is, what did you do wrong? That's the equivalent of an angry person being told to calm down. Like, it's just going to escalate the situation. The best thing to do is just try and be calm and let them tell the story. right?
Yeah, exactly. What happened? So
Right.
in 2010, I had a baby. Becca would have been less than a year old. I had two other kids. Ren would have been almost 9, turning 9 that year. Nate would have been 7. Um, my life, I was working at a factory. Things were actually fairly idyllic for me, and it's just
Yeah.
like I would work during the week and we would party on the weekend, and that was it.
We
That
would
was
party
kind
on
of,
the weekend. I hung out with you
yeah.
every weekend during that time. Yeah.
Oh fuck yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Even though, so I lived in Keswick, which was on Lake Simcoe near Jackson's Point. You were living
Yeah.
in Toronto though at the time, right?
I just moved there a few months before.
Yeah.
That's kind of where the story
Okay.
started.
So that's me sitting where I was. 2010, around this time. Where are you, Ben, and what do you like?
So I had just moved to Toronto. I'd been there. I moved in February of 2010 into the city. And so to put in context, this is 2 years after the what they call the recession. So the economic explosion, whatever you want to call it. And I was a chef at the time, so I had been cooking for I don't know 7-8 years at that point, and doing quite well. Like I ended up being in positions of responsibility in almost every kitchen I was in. But after the crash hit, it restaurants just stopped hiring, and it really took the wind out of my sails. I ended up working at Subway for 6 months, 3 to 6 months, something like that. Which, considering that I had been running a high end, big box restaurant, not running myself, but like part of the management team.
Yeah.
That was really devastating for me, and sort of the first example of how you're only important until they don't need you.
Yeah.
So I moved into the city quite jaded and apathetic. I would even say nihilistic. I was kind of like, the world sucks, no one cares. You just got to fight until you die. And so that was the place I was at when I got a job downtown, and went in for my first day. And the chef who had hired me, just to put a cherry on the bullshit cake, the chef who had hired me was fired during the 2 weeks between being hired by them and finishing out my current job. So they didn't even know I was employed. So I showed up for my first shift, and they were like, "Who are you?" And they needed somebody, and I'm pretty gung ho. So I was like, "Yeah, I'll stay and show you what I'm worth, and see if you want me." I was there for 4 or 5 hours. They liked the cut of my jib. They hired me, but they said, "We don't have your resume on file, so to get all your information, can you come back and bring it back?" I said, "Yeah, no problem. I can bring it back in a couple days." So that was my plan. And the day that I was going to go to work to drop off my resume was June 26th. So I read on the news, the words riot and protest, and saw lines of riot cops on CP24, which is like the 24-hour news channel in Toronto.
It's like our CNN or Fox News or whatever the fuck. Yeah.
I'd say it's equivalent to CNN for Canada.
Yeah.
And
so what would be our Fox News, like Sun TV or something?
I think Ford has his own news network. I can't remember what it's called, but that's basically them.
Well, good for him.
Yeah, right. Yeah. From sticker manager to running his own company. It's
right.
Yeah.
So you heard protest and riot. I think we need to get into your brain a little bit and how those words affected you, and what that meant to you at the time.
I laughed. The word riot in Canada.
That's the important part. Riot, Canada. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounded hilarious. A little more background. My grandfather was a war veteran, and I've always been fascinated by history. particularly the history of war and empires, rise and fall and that kind of stuff. So I've read a lot of atrocious stuff that's happened in the world over the last few thousand years.
And so you're a history buff too. That's something that people should know. Like you've always been big. Even I remember even like we're playing D&D shit, and you're like adding some of that into the mix and whatnot. So yeah, you've always been a history buff.
Yeah, I'm a huge dork. So like I understand that in context, like we live in a pretty sweet time, relatively speaking, and
did.
Well, I felt this way at the time, right?
Oh, okay, yes, fair, okay.
I don't think, like, in terms of some of the periods in history that we could have lived through. This one's still at the top of the list for stability. But it doesn't mean that everybody's getting a fair shake.
Yeah.
So anyway, when I heard Riot in Toronto, I was like, "What is a riot? Like, what are they throwing cotton candy at each other? Like, I can't even envision what Canadians getting angry looks like."
Maple syrup and pancakes.
Right? Yeah.
But it's so not underhand throwing.
We can't eat it all. So I just, I figured, how bad could it be? I figure I'll go downtown. I'll try and show some good faith with my boss. I'll do my best to try and get downtown because my job was right in the heart of the theater district, which is like, center of the downtown core. And I figure I'll make an effort. And if cops turn me around, then I can tell my boss that the cops literally wouldn't let me go to work.
So I was told, I remember being told at the time that you were just innocently trying to go to work and happened through this protest. And I was like, I call bullshit. Like, I'm just saying, like, that's the story I was told. And I was like, no. He knew where he was walking to. He knew what he was walking through. Like, he had an idea. That's where I was coming from anyways.
You're half right. So, I didn't know where I was going. I'd only been in the city for a few months, and I'd spent most of that time working just out of town. So I didn't really know how to walk through the city. I just followed the subway lines, right?
Yeah, I remember. I did the same thing when I worked there. Yeah, that was the easiest way to go.
Yeah. So, and I didn't really like now. I've been running a business in the city where I travel by public transit, so I can tell you how to get anywhere now. But at the time, it was like, if it's not on the subway line, I don't know what the hell it is. So I got on the subway to head to work, and they shut down at Spadina. They wouldn't go any further downtown. So to give people context about Toronto, the downtown core, the city's on the waterfront, which is the southmost part of the city.
And it's a grid, something that people don't realize. I loved living in Toronto.
New York. Well, it's sort of, New York's got kind of a grid going on with Manhattan, but it's still got like meandering streets, and it's not quite.
This is like almost to an anal level grid. Like, it's pretty
north
great.
to south, exactly. East to west, exactly. It's really, really regimented. Particularly downtown core. It gets a little more, but let's not get in the weeds. We're talking about downtown. So the waterfront is at the south end, and then the downtown core kind of starts on the north end at Spadina. So in that box is where the city proper exists. So the subway shut down basically at the border of downtown. So I got to walk all the way down to the far end. But I figure, I don't know the city. What more interesting time to wander through my home, my new home, than now? I'll just go and I'll see how far I can get, right? I'm an adventurous dude. I don't really have fear, which is mostly stupid. And we can tally up the stupid things I did by the end of it. So I started heading south on Spadina. And I get to College Street, which is about just north of the halfway point. And
actually, sorry, speaking of stupid stuff, I think it's also important. How old were you in 2010?
26, 27.
Yeah, so that's important, just so that we kind of go, okay, so this was a 27-year-old white guy, we know we get the full picture.
Living in a bubble.
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
So I'm heading south on Spadina. I get to College Street, and I see this row of riot cops marching up towards me, and I'm like, they don't look friendly. So again, not knowing where I'm going, just knowing that I have to head a certain direction, I hang a hard left.
And Ben, what are you wearing? Because that mattered.
T-shirt and jeans.
What color?
Blue jeans and a black T-shirt.
Yeah, we always wear the black.
Yes.
And it's funny because we didn't coordinate this either.
Well, I'm wearing blue today, actually.
Is that blue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I see it's all shadowed. It looks black to me.
Yeah, it's all good.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that I had heard the term Antifa or anything like that before this riot, but I believe it did come up in this.
Well, kind of. So Antifa is something that's kind of emerged since, since white supremacy in America became a little more public in the past, I'd say 7-8 years.
Okay.
But what you're talking about is the Black Bloc, which has
become
sort of synonymous with Antifa. Black Bloc is sort of considered the radical mobilized version of Antifa, and they're sort of wrapped in the same package. But we can get into details on that later.
I just it was literally just the clothing, and
yes,
so that
I was dressed as people are described in the Black Bloc, minus the mask. Most of them are unmasked.
And of course, that was our daily. Like, first off, black is just something you kind of wear, especially in when you're. I mean, that was just us. We're metalheads. We're nerds. Like, we just love black. But also, in the kitchen, it's like black is an easy thing to wear because it's probably not going to stain. It's not going to get fucked up. So, it really was just a necessity as well because I was a cook too. You and I have worked together in a lot of kitchens and shit. So, black
I'm a musician as well, so like I use T-shirts to advertise bands I love. That's just how I've been like that since I was 14. So like I consider I'm like like when I kind of started getting into punk rock and I started getting into like the brass tacks of capitalism and stuff, I was like, okay, well if everything's a billboard, then I'm going to be a billboard for shit I care about. And so the cheapest way to do that is to find black T-shirts and print stuff on them. So I've always been with the black T-shirts. It's just kind of part of the uniform to a certain degree. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how I'm dressed. The Black Bloc, particularly in Canada at this time, it's all white kids dressed in blue jeans and black T-shirts, wearing a mask, and they're always accused of instigating and starting riots. That's kind of the background context of this. So I hang a hard left onto College from Spadina. Little do I know, I'm 100 yards away from Queen's Park, which is the provincial capital of Ontario. That's where the Parliament meets. So this is where the protest is happening. I don't know where Queen's Park is. I've literally never been there before. So I turn a corner and I'm like,
no school trips, no nothing like that.
No, we didn't do that. No, we went to St. Louis Market once. We went to we saw a theater show, but we never went to Queen's Park.
Weird.
Yeah, a serious blind spot for politics in education. But anyway, so where was I? Oh yeah, so I just turn and I'm in Queen's Park all of a sudden. I don't even realize what's happening. So there's a line of riot cops, another one right in front of me, and there's people standing there, and some of them have signs, and some of them are just kind of milling around and having conversations, but it doesn't look like an organized anything. It just looks like a bunch of people standing there. And I honestly, this is how the level of naivety I had. I walked into this crowd of protesters thinking, oh, these guys are probably figuring out how to get downtown too. Right? As
if you had to sell the hick boy anymore.
Right? Yeah, totally. Well, they probably just noodle the city too. All right. Anyway, so I figure, I think we're at naive level 2,000, so I'll bring it to 3,000. I figure I'll just walk up to the cops and ask them if there's another way around. And if not, then I can tell my boss I did my part and I can go home. But I don't want to cause any shit. And I figured these guys, they're just doing their job. They're just here to protect and serve, and things could get dangerous. So they're here on our behalf. Can't be that bad. So as I'm about to walk up to this line of cops, they rush the crowd. Now, fight or flight kicks in instantly. I don't even think about it. I just book the other way. And there was a guy right in front of me who was definitely over 60. And he had a bike. So he's kind of straddling this bike. So as soon as the cops rush, he can't turn around fast enough. And they grabbed him. And two cops with batons just repeatedly on his head. And he didn't have a helmet.
Now, do you remember him doing anything physically or in any way that would make them want to, or make them feel like they needed to beat on this man?
Okay, so if I'm the cop, like facing this person, he's literally like this. He can't do anything. He's on his bike sideways, trying to turn so that he can get away. I can't imagine how he could have caused any trouble or do anything wrong. And I was right in front of the dude. So if he'd done something, like I wouldn't pretend like he didn't.
Well, and let's not forget also, in Canada, we're not used to seeing. I've never seen, and I think I've never seen a police. First off, like a gathering like that, but also I'd never seen riot gear. Like I still have never up close seen riot gear. So there's an intimidation there already.
Yeah, unless you're dumb like me. So I thought, like, I looked at it as like, this is just a uniform. They were told to put on this uniform. They were told to be here. They're just people. It's not a big deal. And I'm not saying that in any negative. I'm not trying to cast aspersions on law enforcement in any way. I think we can get into that in detail later. This is about what happened to me. But
this is the meat and potatoes.
Right. At the time, I just looked at it like, this is the uniform they have to wear for this particular day because of the job they've got. But they're just people. They've got eyes and a face. I can just go up and say hello, right? They're supposed to work for me anyway. They're supposed to be here on my behalf anyway. So, what's the problem? So anyway, I see this happen and I think, like, what the fuck? Like, where did we go? Like, I felt like I was in a different world all of a sudden. These people in uniforms that are supposed to represent the city I live in are, opening the skull of one of my fellow citizens. I'm like, this is not right. And I want to clarify, there is no better way to radicalize a person than to watch something like this happen.
Yeah.
So to a certain degree, we need to understand, as a society, particularly the law and order types, need to understand that if you crack down, you create a feedback loop. Like, I am who I am because of witnessing this. I stayed there because of this. I was about to go home. But they gave me a reason to protest in that moment. Now, the weird thing is, as I'm running back, as this guy's getting his ass kicked, there's this guy next to me. He's got a red sort of jacket on. I can't read anything. I'm a little busy. And he's like next to me going with a camera, just like backing up with me. And didn't really click until after the fact. I came out, after I got out of holding, front page of the Toronto Star, that was the cameraman. And the front page was that guy getting. So that was when I realized, like, after I got out and I saw that front page, I was like, I was a part of history. This is crazy. And that's when I went home and I started writing all this down so I could keep it locked in my brain. So after this happened, I'm all messed up in my head. I don't know what's going on, but I know that this is not the country I thought I lived in. So I'm protesting now. I'm here to, at the very least, voice my displeasure with what's going on, to put it mildly. And to a certain degree, I think subconsciously, I was like, you're here at an important moment. This is like, witness this. You need to be a witness to this.
So let's get into that a little bit, because that's something that hasn't been mentioned. Why the G20? Why were these protesters here? What? And again, it doesn't matter. They have every right to be standing there. That's not the issue. But what politically was going on that made all these people have to be out there? Obviously, we understand now why you decided to stay. But why was everyone else already there?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That's my takeaway from my. Do you mind if we continue? I'll get into this in a minute, but I'm not even, I'm just about to get to the protest itself, because this is just the outskirts. This isn't even a protest. That's the funny thing. Let's do it. It's just a bunch of randos. So, so I see this, I immediately get angry, and I'm like, okay, these cops aren't my friends. I'm not asking them shit. I'm staying here and I'm showing solidarity with these folks, because I didn't even realize they were here for a reason, but clearly there's a reason to be here, right? So, so I start making friends. I'm a pretty friendly dude, and I start, just talking with people and asking them, from the city, what are you doing here, that kind of stuff, and they're just telling me, we're here against globalism or whatever. A lot of nebulous things, nothing really specific, that people are there for. And there's some chants going on, and I end up kind of leading the crowd in "O Canada." I just started singing the first lines of the national anthem, and then everybody joined in, and it felt really good for this one moment. It was like, we are all countrymen. We are all united in a common cause, right? And that didn't last, obviously. The cops rushed again, and grabbed another.
Did they at least let you finish the fucking anthem?
They did. That would have been
good.
I think that would have been bad. I think
that almost would have been worse. That would have really, I know it's kind of a funny thing to say, but if you guys were, mid Canada, and they just decided to go at you and be like, "Whoa, motherfuckers, that was not the time."
What is less radical than singing the national anthem? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a sign of patriotism. So if they had done that, it's it's a violation of a different level. Especially in that uniform. So they rushed the crowd again, grabbed a couple more people, and I was like, I need to get out of this space, because they keep pushing forward and then standing still, and we're losing ground. So I see a little spot where I can duck through and kind of sneak through a fence to get to Queen's Park proper. And I figure, let's see what's actually going on here.
And can we please state, you guys can't tell here, but Ben is a tall man.
Yeah,
I've been to concerts with Ben where it's like, well, I'll get lost, but at least I'll know where that motherfucker is.
Yeah, and I never get lost. I always know where. Yeah, I can find people from a mile away, because I'm always seeing over everybody else's heads.
Yeah.
So I sneak through, and end up in Queen's Park. And it's bedlam, just complete madness inside the actual protest space.
And actually, that's something that you only touched on a little bit. And I remember they already had these benches and stuff set up ahead of time. They'd already fortified the area even before. And a lot of us back home were like, why? What the fuck is going on? We didn't understand the reason for the protest, but we didn't understand the reason for the mobilization. What are you guys expecting to happen here?
Right. And also, it's, to a certain degree, it's kind of like, if you leave garbage out, you're going to get raccoons, right? So if you say that we're going to crack down and there's going to be, it was basically martial law downtown for several days, honestly. And they made this declaration long before the actual meeting happened. So you can imagine people who are looking for an excuse to cause shit. Someone says martial law in Toronto, they're like, yeah, buddy, grab the bat, let's go. You kind of attract whatever, you're putting out. So I'm sure there was some of that going on. I also kind of feel like, especially after seeing that and seeing some of the following stuff, I was watching, actively following Occupy just after this happened. And it seems like, I don't know, to a certain degree, like there's a section of the population that love to go to protests and just start shit. It's like they follow these corporate or globalist meetings around like a Fish concert. And, they're just, they like, oh yeah, last year was pretty cool, but hopefully this year we can start some fires, man. Like,
right.
So yeah,
this isn't the McRib, guys. It's not worth following.
Totally. So I don't like. Now things have become more legitimate over time, but I know that there are shit disturbers. It's very much, a few people start a problem and then things escalate. And there's a diffusion of responsibility when there's a large crowd. People start acting crazy, and then everybody else kind of follows suit because they're like, who's watching, right? So anyway, I get into Queen's Park, and rocks are flying, water bottles are in the air, people in masks are yelling and screaming and kicking, and just like I'm seeing cops actually getting attacked. It's kind of wild. Meanwhile, so on one side are all the protesters. Some of them are just in groups that are chanting and have signs. Some of them are like cells of people that are committing violence, that are throwing shit and kicking shit and like jumping and elbowing cops and stuff like that. And then along the other side is where all the cops are, and they're like mobilized in a like a military formation, like sort of a phalanx kind of thing, like Spartans, you know what I mean? With the batons and the shields. And then behind them are like a constant flow of buses and trucks that are bringing more cops in all the time. Now, this looks extremely well equipped and organized on the police side.
Mm-hmm.
And I highlight that because I saw 2 ambulances the entire time I was there. So think about how much money it would cost to have all those cops bust in, have all that gear ready to go, have the buses like rented out and equipped, like the whole 9, right? And then 2 ambulances. That seems a little weird to me,
Yeah.
And I immediately kind of caught on to that. I was like,
do you think that has something to do with the fact that they're just like, yeah, you guys probably want to stay back from this anyways, or do you think there's something a little more sinister there?
Look, here's what I know. If you call, if you call 911, they ask you if you need fire, ambulance, or police. If they don't know which one, all 3 show up. That's just protocol. So if you're going to have that many cops and only 2 ambulances, that's a decision that was made at some point, right? That's my concern.
That's a fair statement.
Yeah. So I kind of enter this chaotic arena, and I'm just trying to find a place to like get the lay of the land, right? Because I'm treating this like I'm a witness. I'm not here to protest necessarily. I see some sketchy stuff going on, and people need to know. So I want to be there to kind of. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just the new job is gone now. Like that's not even in your mind. Yeah. You're not even. Yeah, fuck that. This is, and like you said, you're here for as a witness. You don't even know necessarily what the protests are about. It's more just something fucked up is happening here, and I'm gonna see what's going on.
Yes, exactly. And I've been watching walls being built along the waterfront, in anticipation of this, for weeks. They were being built right near where my new job was. So like I walked along the waterfront with our mutual friend Greg, looking at all the walls being built. and just kind of going, what is going on here?
Shout out to Greg.
Yeah, shout out to Greg. Just kind of like, and he and I were talking about how this is really strange, how far this has gone. It seems like a lot of pomp and circumstance. Like they're trying to project some vision of power, right? It was confusing to me because we're supposed to be the gentle people, right? Canada's supposed to be like the polite, gentle folks.
It's very anti-Toronto because even like, and I think that's something important to be reminded of. Even though Toronto's a huge city, you don't necessarily see a lot of cops around. You know what I mean? Like, I've literally walked around the downtown core, smoking a joint with friends, passing it around, and there's no
legalization. Yeah.
Pardon?
Pre-legalization.
Yeah, that's right. I left. I left before it got legalized. So, but again, as long as you weren't blowing it in people's faces and shit, no one gave a crap. Yeah. So, and it was hard, like literally hard, to try to just randomly find a cop while you were walking the downtown core. It just didn't happen a lot.
To a certain degree, that's because we were in public areas. The cops tend to frequent low-income neighborhoods and places where crime is more prevalent. So they're around, and they're quite well financed. There's a lot of precincts. It's just that they don't spend a lot of time in the fashion district, so most of the places that you and I hung out back in the day weren't where cops were.
So no fashion police?
No, they're all over Toronto. They're just not like that. Yeah. So anyway, Queen's Park, things are going crazy, and I'm kind of just looking at this as like, this is going to be a hell of a story to tell. I don't think it's going to go any further than that. So, my history and my background with my grandfather starts kicking in because I'm watching the tactics of the cops from a distance. And, what they would do is they would set up in a line, and then they would start marching forward and banging their batons on their shields. And it's really intimidating and scary for people, right? It freaks you right out.
And we've seen that shit in movies and stuff. Like, that is...
Absolutely. It's like like the Spartan shit, right? So they're doing this, and they're marching forward, in lockstep with each other. And there's always like a sergeant kind of like roaming along the back, like a coach at a hockey game. You know what I mean? Just watching everything going on. And as they're marching forward, they get towards like a collection of people who are a little I don't know, I don't want to say braver, dumber, I think is the word, than everybody else. And then as soon as they got like 5 to 10 yards away, they would just go straight for them and grab one or two, smack them in the head, pull them back behind the line, and then they just disappear. You don't see them again. As soon as they do that, they lock in place and they do not budge. So I see this happening 2 or 3 times. They're only taking like 10, 15 yards at a time, right? So it doesn't look that dangerous. But I'm seeing we're losing ground. And they're pushing us closer and closer together. Now, the crowd's starting to dwindle as well. So this is like probably 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that. Most people have got the fight scared out of them. So they're going home. But there's still, at the same time, there's other people who are like, what's going on? And they're running in. So it's kind of balancing out. But the crowd is getting slightly smaller, and we're getting more tightly packed.
So would it be fair to state at that point then that the people who are remaining are probably fairly hardcore? You know what I mean? Like
they're there to protest.
It took a lot for those people to not leave. So at that point, what you have is you have a wall of Spartan police, and then you have this tight group of people who are fucking angry and who are not moving. They've already proven that by not moving.
Correct. Yes, and they're very vocal, and they all have grievances. They're not aligned, but they all have grievances. They all have reasons to be there. Now, it's around this time when the cops start really moving and closing in that all these guys with masks, they're gone. I don't see them again. The violence disappears. Everybody else that's there is a peaceful protester. And I'm saying that very specifically because when, however it happens, we get into the news coverage of this thing, the story that's told is very different than the reality. So I want to be clear. By the time the cops have started encroaching around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, long before this is over, there is no more violence on the protester end. No one's throwing anything. No one's causing shit. They're yelling. If you consider that violence, I don't know. But it's really not. We're not escalating, right?
And by the way, on our end, for days on end, because again, I'm at the lake. I'm not even worried about, like, obviously I'm seeing it, but I'm seeing it through the news, the newspaper, all that, and all we're shown is, you know, a smashed Starbucks and the Black Bloc and stuff like that. So we're not. There's no side of, oh, well, there was a bunch of peaceful protesters there. That was not a part of the narrative that came to us.
No, it wasn't. The narrative is actually really important to my awakening process. Like, a lot of, like, the really important stuff happened after I got my ass kicked. But we'll focus on my ass kicking for this one.
Please go on.
Yeah. Let me tell you more. Yeah. So at this point, I'm starting to, you know, feel the pinch. I'm like, I can see where this is going. It's not going to end well. But I don't know what else to do other than just leave. And clearly, this isn't over. I'm feeling this responsibility. I know it sounds stupid. It's very naive. It's very foolish. But I'm feeling this responsibility to be there so that I can tell people what happened.
And I do remember you mentioning that at one point.
Yeah. You know, it was an ego thing at the time, for sure. I wanted to be the guy with the cool story, you know. But in retrospect, I'm glad it happened. I'm not justifying my reaction or the immaturity of it, but I'm glad that it happened because of the way that it changed who I am.
And speaking of changed who you are, I know we will get into this a lot more probably in the second segment, but sure, you're still dealing with physical ramifications of what happened to you.
Yep. Let's talk about how I got them first, and then we'll get there.
But I just want, as we're talking about this, I want people to be aware.
Yep. I have a recurring injury that I have to deal with on a at least yearly basis for the rest of my life. One at least.
So
multiple though. So
beating and go.
Right. So the cops are encroaching. You know, people are getting a little more tightly pushed in, so Queens Park is a giant. It's a big building, and then in front of it is this huge sprawling sort of lawn. Right. It has gardens on it and stuff, and then there's a statue of a dude on a horse at the very center of it.
Who the fuck is that dude? Does anybody even know?
It's John A. McDonald. I think it's John A.
Really?
Yeah, I remember reading the plaque while I was there, and I'm pretty sure it's John A.
Because, I mean, he was a drunk. Could he even ride a horse?
I think he had to ride a horse to get anywhere because he was drunk all the time.
I assumed he was in a carriage. That would be the smart way to go if I was a drunk.
I don't know. You'd need roads for a carriage. Toronto was like dirt roads until like, what, 92? So
91, asshole.
So anyway, I'm kind of in front of this statue of this, you know, horsed dude, and
who may or may not be our founding prime minister.
Right? Yeah. So we're not like they're slowly coming up, but there's still, you know, probably a good 40 yards between me and the cops. And then I see a break in the line, and out of nowhere, a line of mounted police just come in. They're not at a gallop. I don't want to oversell this, but they're moving quick. Horses are not slow animals. They're at a solid canter, and they're coming at us. Now, file.
When you say, because remember, we're going to have a lot of Americans watching this. When you say mounted police, are you talking about Toronto police officers on horseback? Or are we talking like RCMP.
Not RCMP.
Mounties.
No.
Yeah, that's important. And I knew I was pretty sure I knew the answer to that, but of course, people are going to be imagining red stuffy Mounties.
Oh
and
yeah,
it's like,
no.
No, motherfucker, it wasn't like that at all.
Right. No.
Yeah.
This is just Toronto cops. We have Toronto Mounted Police. They've been around all the time. You know, like you see them on the street every once in a while. They usually those are the ones you usually see in like the fashion district or where the clubs are and that kind of stuff because they're sort of like the show cops. You know what I mean?
Actually, the one time you did see one of them was in oh my gosh, the Dave Chappelle movie about weed.
Oh, Half Baked.
Because that was, Half Baked.
Yeah.
That was a Toronto.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah,
that was in downtown Toronto. Yeah, it was. It was right by Sam the Record Man. And
the inciting incident for the entire story. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that was a Toronto Mounted Police. Yeah.
That's a good point. Yep.
See, I try.
Thank you. So a bunch of dudes, just like the ones in Half Baked, are marching at us, and they're in single file. So they're, this isn't like war. They're looking to just go straight through the middle of us and split us up. Because how do you fight a horse? These things are like 300 pounds, solid muscle, trained for combat. You're not doing anything against a horse like this. It's like fighting three guys at once. They're gigantic, man. And I'm saying this is 6'4". Like the horse's chest is up to my head. They're massive. So these guys march right in. The horses are biting at people as they pass because they're trained for this, right? And every once in a while, one of the cops will swing down and crack one of the protesters with a baton. I watched a guy legit get trampled by a horse. That was when I was like, these guys are out for blood. I knew that this was not just a police tactic. I could tell they want to hurt us. When I say trampled, this is raw, so I want to be like detailed. The horse knocked the guy down like with one hoof and then clop, 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 clop across his whole body.
Fuck.
And the whole nine.
I've never heard that. Holy shit.
The horse and the horse specifically was steered toward this guy through a garden bed, not along the path. Like whoever was riding this thing aimed for this person. They wanted to hurt. And when I saw that, I was like, I don't know what's going on now,
Well, and we're about to deal with I know we're getting close to the beatdown.
Very cool.
For people out there to understand, I myself am a large man. I'm considerably shorter. I'm a good 6 to 8 inches shorter than Ben, but I'm a solid dude. And Ben and I have wrestled on multiple occasions, and
consensually.
There have, pardon? Yeah. Well, and also we've kendo fighting and all sorts of stuff. We would get very rough and we would have a good time. And I have certainly been dropped by Ben. I am more than willing to admit that. So when we go into how hard he was hit, you need to understand that Ben might be a tall, thin man, but Ben can hold himself because I am a guy who will get you down if you let me. So I just felt like you guys needed to understand that from my point of view, because when I hear what happens to him, I'm like, I fought with you. Fuck. Like, wow. So, and again, your biggest, when wrestling with you, your biggest, the best thing about you as a wrestler is that you're dexterous, but you're in a crowd. You lost that. You don't really have dexterity as much in a crowd.
I intentionally got rid of it when I got snagged. So at this point, once the mounted police came through, everybody just devolved into a panic. This is not something that you show up at a protest expecting to see. So people are justifiably freaked out. This is when I hate to put it this way, but this is when that's what separates the weak from the strong, in this sort of scenario. Anybody who had second thoughts, they're gone. So we lost probably a third to a half of the crowd after the mounted police came through. Cops obviously see this as a sign of confidence, and in they march, and things are getting far more aggressive. At this point, a truck comes in with a giant speaker on it. I know now through research that this is a long-range acoustic device, or an LRAD, also known as a sonic cannon. These things are designed, now if you ask law enforcement what they're for, they will tell you that they are designed to project a message to a large population, but they also can be projected into a crowd that can cause permanent hearing damage. They never tell you about the secondary, like the other, option B on the switch. They never tell you about that. But yeah, you can ruin people's lives with this device. This is, and for Canadians listening, this is part of the Toronto Police arsenal. They can give it to any Ontario police that they need to. This is something that we have here. This is not an American problem. We are not that different. Okay?
Yeah. It's not like we had to call in for this. This was already on hand. We have this.
We have been America's neighbor for 200 years. That's, we share.
See, I thought we just got better TV shows because of it, so it's good to know.
No, we get better everything,
right?
Yeah, including tools of oppression.
Okay.
We get the top tier stuff. So anyway, so this truck rolls in. The cops are continually pushing forward. Now, we're past the garden now. The cops have pushed us back, and there's only probably a good 30 yards between us and the wall of Queen's Park. Within these 30 yards are elderly people and children having picnics, because no one expected things to devolve this quickly or this much.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, families just eating, right? Because this is what a lawful assembly is supposed to be. It's just people gathering together in common cause. It doesn't always have to be people throwing Molotov cocktails, right? And a lot of people were just there to show solidarity with in protest against whatever, the globalist elite, whatever you want to call it. That's why they were there. So these folks are caught with their pants down. They don't know what to do. And they, little kids, you try to get little kids to leave a place when they're having fun. Like,
yeah. Well, and then they see this stuff and they're like, whoa, what's this? Like,
yeah. And as soon as you tell a kid we have to go, that's the last thing they want to do. So it's like wrangling cats. They're trying to herd their cats, and we're slowly getting pushed back. So the cops have pushed forward. There's a raised platform that's kind of in line with the stairs. So to give you an idea, so Queen's Park is here, the main doors are here, and then there's sort of a pathway coming down and then a set of stairs, right? On either side of those stairs is just a raised platform, even with the top of the stairs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've been there, but yes.
Cool. So we're standing on top of the platform, right on the edge of it. And the cops have pushed up to us.
So you technically have the high ground. You guys are Obi-Wan Kenobis.
Sure, we're Obi-Wan.
Against a battalion of let's not even say stormtroopers, Darth Vaders at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So we see all these people having picnics and they're trying to get out of Dodge. They're not like, oh, this will be fine. Like, they're like, oh shit, and they're trying to book. So we're trying to give them time. So we link arms, and we're like, this far no further, guys. Sorry. So this is a weird juxtaposition for me. I showed up thinking the cops were my buddies, and now I'm protecting and serving. This is very strange for me. Very eye-opening experience. So as we're standing there trying to buy time for these people, the mounted police line up on one side, and another row of riot cops come down Spadina and close in the other side. So now we've got mounted police, riot cops, and a wall.
So you are officially flanked. This is your first real taste of wartime tactics.
We're boxed in, and I know what's happening. I think, you know, I don't know if other people had the same sort of, you know, upbringing that I did with a war veteran, but I see what's happening. I'm like, I know exactly where this is going next.
Well, and this is also stuff, even just, I mean, not even just wartime, but also like when we would play our games and we would do all that kind of stuff, like Dungeons and Dragons or models or anything. This
Command and
is
Conquer,
standard
like video
stuff.
games.
Yeah, this is standard stuff that you would set up. So when you see that around you, you're like, oh fuck, this isn't a game. Like this is real shit. And I understand how devastating this is.
No one's rolling for damage. I'm going to take the damage. Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't have initiative either, did you?
No, they had the initiative.
No. Yeah, they did.
They took my dice. Yeah, so
well said.
Yeah, so we've got our arms linked, and now we're boxed in, and that's when the megaphone kicks in, and I hear, "This is now an unlawful assembly. Leave, or you'll be arrested."
And do we understand that statement is so huge? Do we understand why it's an unlawful statement or an unlawful assembly?
Because
have
they
we been
declared
told? Okay, but there's been no reasons given. It's just we've decided. Blah. That's it.
Bingo.
Okay. Fuck them. All right.
Yeah. So they basically officially declared an unlawful assembly and tell us that we have to leave or we'll be arrested. Now we can't leave. So this is the ultimate catch-22.
So they're asking you to leave.
They're saying either you leave or you'll be arrested. So they're basically saying you're under arrest. They're saying it in a polite way that can be protected if anybody asks any public. So if someone says, "Did you surround those people?" No, we told them they could leave, right?
So now again, we discussed this. You have your hardened group now because the people who have left, they left. Was there anyone who was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go"? Like, is there anyone who attempted to leave or anyone who said, "I'd like to leave now"?
Okay, so here's what happened. We all looked around and like we're pretty friendly at this point, right? The people who stuck around, we've exchanged names because it's like we're gonna have to know each other when this goes down because we're witnesses to something important. And I'm still good friends with.
But there's even like a social aspect to it. Like even like if you think about it, like if you're you're in a mosh pit, you kind of get to know the people who are around you, and so there is, and it's weird, but like in that setting, there ends up being like that sort of, there is a social aspect to it, which is very weird. Right? Yeah, absolutely. You're sharing in something that is very strange. But for some reason, the people around you also understand. So
this is, I would say, the power of public assembly. This is where it lies. You, when you go to a protest, an actual like public demonstration, the differences between you they just kind of dissolve. You're there with a common purpose, and that really resonates regardless of any sort of, like, you'll go back to your lives and one of you will be a customer and the other person will be the server. It doesn't really matter in that moment. You have a fraternity in that you agree that this problem needs to be solved, whatever it happens to be. And that's a very powerful thing. I really believe in the power of public demonstration, even though my feelings on its ability to change things have changed over time. But I still do believe that it's a really important thing to gather in solidarity for a common cause. So we all start talking when this happens, when they make this declaration. We all start kind of looking at each other, and like I call down, or one of us calls down. We're in the center, right? So like sort of like the 4 or 5 of us that I know that I've just met, we're kind of more than acquaintances at this point. We're all kind of talking, and we're the ones that said, like, let's lock arms and let's try and protect these people behind us. We were the ones that kind of all agreed, and then everybody else kind of joined in along the line. So we start calling down to the other side, like, is there a way out? Is there a way out? More for the people behind us. And they're like, no, man, we're screwed. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, now we've got nothing to lose. We're officially criminals.
You're also, and not to put too fine of a point on this, but you are cornered animals, like literally.
Yep.
And I mean, people need to kind of understand that there's something. And again, let me know if I'm completely talking bullshit here, but I believe that there's something animalistic that kind of pops in your head and goes, whoa, 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 like something primal.
Depending on who you are, yes. I would say that the knee jerk for most people would be a primal reaction. Now, yeah, I don't want to get too deep into this, but there's something that happens when you're a victim of violence repeatedly in life. And as I said, my dad was more communicative with his hands than he was with his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a point where you stop being scared and you go into a sort of emotionless state where you're just objective and you're just trying to maintain calm and focus so that you can get through it. So that's kind of where my head goes. I'm like, this is bad. This is clearly going to get worse. So what do I have to lose? I'm going to start talking to these cops. So I think we're on mistake number 10 at this point. Again, still thinking, these are people. I can talk to them. They'll listen, you know.
Naivety level 5,000, I believe, at this point.
Yeah, yeah, it's over 9,000 now for the DVD fans. So I start, there's a cop in front of me. I look in his eyes and he is so angry, man. Like his jaw is like this and
clenched.
Yeah, and his eyes are like just barely open, and he's looking up at me like I am a monster. And I felt so sad, you know, because for someone to believe that I am their enemy, you have to have a certain amount of belief in the idea that we're not the same. And I showed up there thinking that we were all Canadians, that we had that in common. And clearly that, you know, we had a different definition of what the same is. And it just really depressed me. And I just, when I saw the look in his eyes, I looked down the line of cops and I thought, how many other people are here just like him, that are just looking for a head to crack because they think that there's something wrong with us. And so I figured, what's the worst that could happen if I just try and talk these guys off the cliff? We're not getting out of here unless they let us out. So the least I can do is try and convince them that we're not the enemy they think we are. So I start saying, you know, guys, this we don't have to go this far. We don't have to do this. You know, we're on the same team. We're fellow Canadians. I understand you have a job to do, but you know, think about what side of this you're on right now. Think about what your kids are going to say about this day. Like, there's more to this than just, you know, collecting a paycheck. This is supposed to stand for something. What you do is supposed to stand for something. Why are you doing this? Why not just step back? You know? And so that sergeant I told you about that was like wandering along back and forth behind the lines. So over the course of this whole thing, he's been making notes. There are various lulls in the time. So the story I've just told is like over a 3 or 4 hour period, right?
Yes.
So there are some good 20, 30-minute lulls where nothing's happening. And, you know, I smoked at the time, so I would just sit down and have a cigarette and just kind of like watch what's going on. And I see this guy and he's like looking at people that are a little radical. He did it with me as well. Cause I have a mouth. I was saying some dumb shit. And so he's like making notes in his little pad.
And you're talking about you speaking. Were there other people who were attempting the same thing, or were you kind of?
There were some people that were saying stuff like, "You don't have to do this, guys." You know, you know, you're supposed to protect and serve. You know, like everybody's kind of like getting a little more vocal.
Well, and it sounds like a lot of it is, hey, you can let us go.
Yeah. We're not saying like, fuck the cops or stupid pigs, fuck you. Like
that moment's done.
We're trying to de-escalate here. And which, as far as I was concerned, was supposed to be the cops' job. I don't really know what's happening anymore. The script is flipped now. I have no idea what world I'm in. So I'm just doing the only thing I know how to do.
We're about to burn this script.
Oh yeah. That's a light up. So this sergeant who's been making notes the whole time, I don't know if it's the same guy, but the cookie cutter sergeant wanders by, and he sees me. I'm tall. I'm wearing a black t-shirt. I'm talking shit. I don't look scared. I'm everything they're looking for. And he points at me. He goes, "That guy." 4 hands, just I'm gone. My 2 compatriots who have my arms, they're hanging on for dear life. Like, I am amazed that they tried so hard. My t-shirt gets torn in like 4 different places. My backpack gets pulled off, and I don't register what's happening until I'm on my back. Now,
okay, let's stop for a second. I know we're in such a cool spot. We're going to stop for a second. Guys, what I would like for you to do is I would like for you to pause the video. I want you to Google Every Time I Die. What's the name of that album, Ben?
X Lives.
X Lives. Now, here's the thing about that album. Someone got a picture of the moment when Ben, on the cover of that album, is my friend here, Ben Cook. Someone got a picture of him, and he is fucking a rag doll. And you guys get to see what that actually looks like. So please go now, check out X Lives by Every Time I Die, because he was wearing an Every Time I Die shirt. And
Let's take a minute to talk about that. The picture, the photo that was taken, I don't know who it was, and no hard feelings, but I've seen no money from it. I found out from
or at least free fucking tickets.
Something, a T-shirt again, because mine got ruined. I don't know. Right. So the reason I'm on the cover is because I was wearing an Every Time I Die T-shirt that day. And this guy caught me literally as the cops pulled me away from the line.
You were lifted the fuck up.
The thing I just described, those 4 hands grabbing me and the people trying to hold on for dear life, that is the shot.
Just for those of you who don't want to Google, this is it.
It's not very clear there.
It's not very clear if you're not willing to Google, but you have the capability to do so. And the fucked up thing is,
you can check out the picture.
Yeah, and I remember us talking to them. We I think I found them on Facebook, and I mentioned, hey, this is my buddy Ben. He was the dude on the cover of that fucking album. And you said, hey, what's up? And they were like, we thought you were fucking dead. Like, that's literally what they said.
They said, we've been looking for you for months.
Yeah, we thought you were dead. And that was, and because we didn't, obviously the album didn't come out for a bit later. So I think this was like 2012 or something.
It's 2013. 2013 when the album came out.
Okay.
Pretty sure.
So I was already down here.
Yeah. I found out from my buddy Dennis, who's the guy who got me into Every Time I Die. We're just chatting about stuff, and we always talk about music. He's always throwing cool bands my way, and I'm always throwing music his way and stuff. And he sends me a message. He's like, hey, have you listened to the new Every Time I Die album? I was like, no, I didn't even know it was out. I'll get it now. And he goes, I'm almost positive. Or no, sorry, I had been listening to it, but I had a little iPod Nano, so you can't really see what's going on the screen. It's too small, right? And he's like, I'm pretty sure that's you on the cover. And I was like, what? Give me a break. How the fuck would they get my picture, right? So I Google this, and I see the picture come out. I was like, Jesus, that's the moment.
That was actually traumatic for me. Because up until then, you were a guy who had a story. I saw your face. I saw how kind of beaten up you were and whatnot. Like I think you sent me pictures and whatnot. I didn't get to see you.
YouTube video of me getting grabbed from behind. Actually, someone had a cell phone camera and they caught a shot of me getting snagged, and you can tell it's me because I'm tall and lanky. But you can't see my face. Yeah.
And again, it doesn't feel like it's anyone. I didn't feel attached to any of that. But when I saw that picture, I was like, oh. That's my brother. Like, holy fuck. and you know in that picture you're fucked. You're fucked. Like,
Yeah,
and so that was
Yeah.
that made it all real. I remember. I know this is a massive step back, but I think it's really important to understand when your brain realizes something's real. When I was probably about around 2000, right around 2000, my brother, him and his wife, they delivered their baby dead, and that was really traumatic. But I never
Yes.
saw the baby, so it didn't register. All it registered was they lost something, and I was really sad for them, and that was brutal in that regard. And of course, there's sympathy and everything, but I haven't lost anything yet.
No, it's like reading something on the news. Right?
Yes, but they had a funeral, and I was asked to be the one to carry the casket, which was effectively like a shoebox. And the fucked up thing is like you're like, yeah, no problem, I'll help you with that. That's fine.
And you pick it up, right?
You pick it up, and it's heavy.
Yeah.
And I remember going from I'm doing something to help them to suddenly it switched. I lift that up, it's heavy, and I'm like, oh, that's my fucking nephew. This is fucking real.
Yeah.
And it was when and I'm tearing up just talking about it. And it was when I saw that album cover that I went, this was fucking real. Like,
this no longer a story.
Yeah, like I mean, you and I, we've gotten cut and bruises, and we've beaten the shit out of each other, and we've had fun, and I've seen you hurt before, and you kind of did.
We grew up as males in the '90s, man. We got our asses kicked once in a while. Like it's how it goes.
Right?
Man.
So it happened, but seeing that, and seeing how completely fucking prone you were.
Also, props to that photographer, because that's a fucking killer shot, man.
It's a really good shot, right? But
top notch.
Seeing
that,
like
instant street cred for me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, absolutely, right?
Yeah.
But that was traumatic for me because at that point it was all real, all 100% real, and that was fucked up.
Yeah, well, my heart was in my throat when I saw that photo. For the first time, I was like, because it's like you look at a picture, and then you're like, oh, that's a face I recognize. That's my face. Oh, and then it's like, flash, you're there again, right?
Well, okay, so we're there again, and so I think we blue-balled people enough. Tell us.
Yep. Yes. Okay, so the cops snag me. They throw me on my back. Now, this is not police protocol. The protocol is you throw someone on their stomach so that you can bind their hands and finish the arrest. That is not what they did. They put me on my back, and at least 200-pound man in full riot gear dropped his entire weight on my face with a shield. Now, when I say that, I want to be very clear about this. He literally fell with every ounce of force in his body on this shield on my face.
Was this one of those glass shields? Or like the plexiglass shields? Or was this?
Yeah, thank God it wasn't glass. I'd be dead.
Sorry. So it was plexiglass?
Yeah, and it didn't break my nose. It crushed it. It broke into multiple pieces. And I felt, I what I heard was, which, like, immediately my brain was like, that's not good. I screamed, ow, you broke my fucking nose, because in that moment you don't really react beyond just the limbic system, right? It's just that fight or flight. And so I yell, ow, you broke my fucking nose. And then hands are on me and I'm being dragged. I don't know where the hell I am. I'm disoriented beyond belief. I've lost all sense of space and time. I'm still conscious though. I want this to be very clear. I didn't lose consciousness the entire time. This is a legacy of taking hits. I was lucid. Because there is a tendency for people to assume that when you're in a violent situation that your memory is not clear. I pulled my sort of observant self into focus, and I was like, pay attention because this is going to be important for testimony. I know it sounds crazy to think that this was going through my mind while this was happening, but It's the kind of person I am.
Well, but also, what other things can you think of? Like, I mean,
Well,
obviously trying to get free, but even that, you're probably like, that's
I
not
wasn't
happening.
trying to get free. I wasn't trying to
Yeah.
get free. I knew it
So
was a
yeah,
lot
there's not
fun.
a lot of things to think about.
I'm behind the police line. Where am I going to go? Like, even if I do escape, I'm going to run and then get tackled by 5 more cops and get beat twice as hard. It's not worth it. I'd rather just get this over with, right?
Yeah.
So when I get dragged, I got pulled onto the lawn, just outside the line, and had to be 5 or 6 cops, with batons, fists, elbows, boots, knees, anything that could cause harm. They're cracking me with, all across my body, from ankles to the forehead, man. I definitely had some damage to my shoulder that is recurring. It's constant. If I don't take care of it properly, it will cause me chronic pain. And I'm kind of mentally preparing for my old age, my shoulder hurting pretty much for the rest of my life. My nose is still screwed, but we can get into that later. So these guys kicking, punching, smacking me with batons all over my body. So I somehow pull myself onto my stomach and I start putting my hands behind my back because I'm trying to speed this fucking thing up, right? And a cop grabs my arms and starts pulling them apart. And I'm like, what is going on, right? I'm lost. And I'm
trying to relent here, yeah.
Yeah, so he's pulling my arms apart as I'm trying to pull them together, and he goes, "Stop resisting." So I kind of look to the left, and I see through the breaking feet of the cops that have surrounded me, because they've just encircled me completely. It's like a high school beatdown, right? So no one can see what's going on. This is very intentional. And I see through a break in the legs that there's people with cameras, and they're trying to aim, trying to get a shot, trying to see something. And so I start yelling, I'm not resisting, so that people can hear this. And I'm hoping something's on the record. Right now, I'm just in the mode of like, I'm going to be in court and I got to defend myself. I need everything I can at my disposal. So I'm yelling, I'm not resisting. And then they grab me by the back of my hair and they push me to the ground. I'm suffocating now.
Yeah.
My entire face is just like in the dirt. I can't see, I can't hear, and I can't breathe. And that's a phrase that has been used way too much with cops involved of late. I can't really explain to you what happened, but a switch flicked in my brain when that happened. And this little voice in my head, is the only way I can describe it, this little voice in my head said, if you don't go limp, you're going to die. The cops are going to, as soon as you go limp, they're going to tie you up and they're going to pull you up because that's what they want. They want you unconscious. So if you go limp before you pass out, they'll tie you up and pull you up. I don't know. Honestly, dude, I don't watch cop shows. I don't know how I knew this, but I did it. I went limp and right away, zip ties, up I went. And they had me.
Zip ties behind your back, correct?
Yep. Tied my hands behind my back and I was lifted by my elbows up.
So let's go into your body now. What, because you talked about ripping shirts and all that kind of stuff. What do you look like?
I don't know. My face is beat pretty hard. I had bruises all over my chest and shoulders and back. It was brutal, man. Like it was I should have gone to the hospital, and that I'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I'm sorry, and I'm talking about your attire. What?
Oh, I'm toast. Yeah, my shirt is hanging off of me. It's in pieces. My jeans are luckily still intact. My shoes are still on. My backpack's nowhere to be found. No idea where it went.
You never found it?
Nope, my hat's gone too. No, I got my backpack back. Actually, they took it and they put it in evidence.
And you were able to get that back?
Yeah, they gave everything back after I was released. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm just surprised that they were able to track that to you. Like that's.
Yeah. Well. Right.
That's kind of fucked up, actually. It's like you just find something there, And then they're able to get that to you. Wow.
Well, they kind of knew who was who.
Continue.
Like I said, that sergeant making notes, right?
Yeah.
So I get pulled up, and now I'm between two plainclothes guys, one woman and one man, and they're both elderly, probably in late 50s, early 60s. Now I don't know who these people are. They're not in uniform. I haven't seen them the entire time. And I've been looking. I have a pretty good memory for faces. No idea who these people are. They just suddenly appear. And they pull me away and they start saying shit like, "Oh, you think you're so fucking smart now, huh? Throwing rocks and spitting at cops, you piece of shit." And I'm not embellishing at all. This is what they were saying. And I said, "My name is Benjamin Cook. You can look me up. I don't have a criminal record." And they said, "You do now, you son of a bitch. You committed a crime now." And I was like, "What crime did I commit?" And they're like, you attacked a police officer. You were throwing rocks. You were spitting at cops." I said, "I did none of those things." I said, "Find any video evidence you like. I can prove that it wasn't me. I didn't do any of that shit." And they said, you can shut the fuck up. We're done listening to you. You can wait until your testimony." So I literally got the fight beat out of me. So I'm not about to argue with these guys.
And what's the point?
Right. They've made their mind up. I'm not going to change anything. So I get put on the ground on the tarmac. So this is middle of June. It's I don't know Fahrenheit, but it was like 30 Celsius, between 25 and 30 Celsius. So it's hot. It's a hot day.
Yeah. So for our Americans, you're in the 90s.
Yep. We're in the 90s.
That's hot.
Yeah. So I get tossed down on the tarmac, on the hot tarmac. So now I'm bruised and I'm bleeding and I'm, burning. And a cop grabs my one hand and twists the wrist. So like I can feel it kind of popping out of its socket almost. And he says, "Move and I'll break your fucking wrist." And I said, "Where am I going to go?" And like, I want to be clear, not the right answer. The right answer is,
okay.
"Yes, officer, absolutely, officer." But I have this problem where because I was raised by a guy who used to smack me around when things didn't go his way, I keep my attitude. It's not good. I'm not suggesting people follow my protocol. So yeah, I go, "And where am I going to go?" And he goes, "Just don't move." So then someone comes over and sits down on like a milk crate or a chair or something and starts taking my information. They're asking my name, my age, my date of birth, my address. They asked my occupation. I told them I was a chef yesterday, but I'm a criminal today. And that's when the guy twisted my arm a little more, and he was like, "No, enough with the smart mouth, motherfucker." Like, "Yeah, okay, no problem." So they finished taking my information, and then I got lifted up, and I'm just standing there, and these cops are just kind of talking amongst themselves, trying to figure out where I'm supposed to go. I can overhear what they're saying. So they're basically saying, like, "This guy's bleeding freely, and we don't know if he has any communicable diseases, so we can't put him in with the rest of the people in the paddy wagon. We got to find a separate spot for him," right? So I had this like 5-minute space where I could kind of get the lay of the land and see what's going on behind the cops' line. Now Queens Park is completely taken over by the cops. They're running this shit now. And the lawn is just collections of police officers in various states of attire. So like some of them are fully armored and they're just kind of chatting amongst themselves. Some of them are laying in the grass in the shade with like, the helmet off and the baton beside them. Some of them are just kind of lounging with their uniforms or their armor kind of sitting, and they're just kind of sitting chatting. They're on break or whatever.
And just as a reminder, people, for any of you who decided, I'm going to jump to the juicy part of the video, this is Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Just so this isn't fucking New York, this isn't Detroit, this isn't Chicago, this isn't like anything like that. This is Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Yeah.
Go.
Exactly. And we're talking hundreds of cops. Hundreds. I don't know how they found all of them, to be honest with you. I found out later that they bust a bunch in from other jurisdictions. But I think that's a detail that we can elaborate on after the fact. So I'm kind of wandering around. looking around at all the cops wandering, and I see, I catch the eye of one of these police officers, and he's with like 4 of his buddies, and he looks at me, and he immediately breaks out in this big grin, right? And he like elbows his buddy, and points at me, and so they're all looking, and they all start laughing. They're pointing at me and laughing because like I don't know what I look like, but clearly it's not good, right? And the guy starts looking. He looks at me and he starts mouthing, "I love it, I love it," over and over again. And so, what am I gonna do? Pick a fight with this guy? Like I can't really take much more without going unconscious. So this is a waste of my energy. So I just kind of shake my head and look another direction. Eventually, I get grabbed and I get put in this this separate compartment in the paddy wagon. So if anybody hasn't seen a paddy wagon, it's basically like a U-Haul cube van, essentially, with benches on either side for people to sit on. There's no seatbelts in there. It's very bare bones. It's just for if you have to arrest a bunch of people at once, like a bar brawl, right? They bust out the wagon. But there's this one separate spot just above the wheel well where they have a single seat for someone in my situation. If they're bleeding and you don't know if they have a transmittable disease, you don't want to put them with everybody else, so you kind of keep them separate. Or if someone's like dangerous or they're not mentally collected, you kind of put them in a separate space.
And I apologize because of course we're doing this in a very racially charged, like 2010 wasn't, but now we're in 2020 where these riots are racially charged. You said paddy wagon, and I'm just asking real quick, does that have anything, the name, does that have anything to do with the Irish? Do you know where that word comes from? Right? Like that's where, and I'm like, fuck, is that like a racially charged word that we have grown up with that also we didn't understand?
I don't know the origins actually.
Okay, all right. I apologize. That was just something in my head, and I had to ask the question. But keep going.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I don't want to get too deep into it, but the Irish, one of the reasons why they stopped being discriminated against so much in the States was that they kind of like the Irish community was like, okay, we're going to raise our kids to be cops and firefighters and like in positions of responsibility and authority, and that's why they're the old trope from the 1940s and 50s about the Irish police officer. That's why it was like they figured if we're going to get the cops to stop beating on us, we got to be cops. And
yeah, and also the Irish, because people always talk about, well, there was Irish slaves and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, yes, you're right.
Not quite the same.
However, the Irish were able to take advantage of one thing that African Americans and other people of color can't. They're white.
Yeah.
So they could take it. They could lose an accent. They could fake things. Like there's things that they could do to not be treated like shit.
Yeah, they could pass, right?
Yes.
Right. Which is, really what that's the bubble I lived in up until this point, was that I could pass as one of the good guys, I guess. I don't like that term, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Anyways, paddy wagon.
Yeah. Right. So I'm in this separate compartment. Now, again, it's like 90 plus, right? And I'm in this solid steel box, bleeding all over myself, sweating all over myself, and I'm having trouble catching my breath because it's so stifling and so hot inside, right?
Were you having a hard time? Obviously, you're breathing through. Could you breathe through your nose?
No.
So that would be part of why you're getting stifled, is because you can only breathe through your mouth.
For sure, yes, that's definitely a factor. It's also brutally stifling hot, and the door's closed, so the air's not circulating. It's just like they put me in an oven. That's the only way I can describe it. So I hang on for a bit, but it's not working, man. Like I know that I'm gonna get heat stroke or I'm gonna pass out or something, and I don't know if I'm concussed. I'm getting really concerned for whether or not I'm gonna survive this, like legitimately live. So I start banging on the door, right? And I'm yelling, hey, someone, can anyone hear me? And I'm getting nothing back. I can hear people talking. They're just ignoring me, right? So I start having trouble keeping my eyes open. I'm feeling woozy, weak, and I figure if I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna go out banging on this fucking door. So I just for like a good, I don't know, minute and a half, 2 minutes, maybe more. I don't know, but I know that my back of my hand was bruised by the time I was done. And for context, I played drums, hand drums, in fact. So for me to bruise my hand hitting something, it's got to be pretty long term. So
and hard.
Yeah. So I'm banging on this thing for a good while, and finally the door just flies open, and this woman, female officer, pops her head in, and she goes, "What the fuck is going on?" I was like, "I can't breathe. I need some fresh air." And she's like, "Well, we can't let you out." And I was like, I know, but I can't. Like, I'm afraid I'm gonna pass out here. And she actually looked at me for the first time. And she saw my face, she saw the damage, and I saw sympathy. And she said, "Okay, I'll just guard the door." And she just stood outside while I was there. And it was clearly awkward for her. So she struck up a conversation with me, because this is what people do when they feel uncomfortable in the presence of another person. They try and lighten the mood by just talking so that their brain isn't working anymore. Because I'm sure what was going through her mind is, this is fucked up. What did this guy do? This can't possibly be the job that I signed up for. All that kind of stuff, right? And so she starts asking me, like, "What's your name? What are you doing? Were we here to protest?" And I said, "Lady, I was just on my way to work." And and I heard her go, "Son of a bitch." Like, she is starting to get wise to the whole situation. But I want to give a shout out to this woman, because she possibly saved my life.
Do you know her name?
I do not. No badge numbers and no names were present. They were all blacked out. So I don't know anybody that hit me, and I don't know anybody that helped me.
That's right. Didn't they have something black over their badges or something?
They had a Velcro strip. So this is something people should know. You know the badge number that's on the side of the uniform in Toronto? It's Velcro. And they can just put a strip over top of it, and it sticks right on. They designed it that way, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is something I remember seeing. That was something that was reported. I don't remember if it was in the newspaper or if that was someone online. I almost want to say newspaper. Down the road, when they were talking about it later on, because of course, in the moment, it was, you guys were fucking idiots. You guys screwed up. You guys were the reason why things were bad. And then afterwards, it was like, we might not have reported that correctly. And that's when we started learning. But that's in the following weeks. That's not like the next day or anything like that. It took some time, and it might have even been months, which again we'll get to later. But yeah.
Well, I will. We'll get there later. We'll talk about it later. So this lady guarded that door until it was time for us to leave. So I didn't go in a paddy wagon. That was just the spot where they were keeping me. When we left Queen's Park, I got put on a coach bus. So this is a Greyhound with real comfy seats. They had a fleet of them. Okay? Now I'm starting to have flashbacks to the war stories my grandfather told me in World War II about transporting prisoners. I'm like, you don't have this size of a vehicle unless you plan on filling it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now, and this isn't just a bus. This isn't just like they borrowed a bus. This thing is equipped to house prisoners. There is a giant cage at the back for people, I guess the unruly ones. I don't know. I wasn't in it. And there are, locking cage systems on each set of seats. And there's 2 seats per, just like a Greyhound, right? And then they can lock that with a cage so that you can't escape. Windows are super dark, so tinted I can't see through them. All I can see is like the street lights, but I can't see any features. I get sat down in the window seat. This kid sits down next to me. He gets put down next to me. Black kid. His eyes the size of a baseball. I'm terrified for him because I don't like that doesn't happen with one hit. You know, this guy got. Now again, I can't see myself, so I have no idea how bad I look, and I'm quite lucid, right? So I'm feeling like I'm just worried about other people. And so I figure I'm just going to make conversation with this dude until we get there so that he stays conscious because I'm really worried about concussion and, you know, that kind of stuff. So I ask him, you know, what's your name? What are you doing? And he tells me that he was part of a church group who were there to preach the gospel of peace. And then he tells me that I don't have anything to worry about because Jesus is watching and he's seeing everything that's happening, and this is all for good reason. And I said, I don't know, man. I said, I think Jesus took the day off today.
It's not very comforting, is it?
Yeah, no, it's not helping at all. So I'm still just kind of chatting with the dude, trying to get the lay of the land for him, make sure that he's safe. And I said, dude, that's a hell of a wound. He's like, what are you talking about? I said, your eye is gigantic, bro. And he's like, oh, is it bad? I said, yeah. I said, it redefines bad, man. And he goes, well, you should see your face, man. And I was like, oh, yeah, that thing. Yeah, you're probably right. He's like, I'm not even so worried about my eye. He's like, that'll probably heal. He said, what I'm worried about is I haven't had my insulin.
Oh, fuck.
And I start thinking, how many people on this bus and other buses haven't had their insulin today? How many people haven't had their pills? Blood pressure, whatever it happens to be. Cops didn't account for that shit, you know? So I'm getting increasingly concerned about, you know, what happens to these people. Wouldn't you know it, 30 seconds after that thought crosses my mind, some commotion starts in the back cage. And I hear, you know, someone saying, someone come here, come quick, someone, please, we need medical attention, we need a doctor, we need medic, come on, please. It's like 4 or 5 people all yelling at once, and cops ignore it for a solid 2 minutes. They just pretend like nothing's happened. And then finally one of them goes, motherfucker, fine, I swear to God. And he starts marching down the aisle, and he goes, I swear to fucking Christ, if I come down there and this is fake, I'm going to beat every single one of you into a coma. And then he opens the cage, and he's like, what the fuck's going on there? Like, he's having a seizure. This guy, he got his head beat in, something fierce, and he started seizing en route to the holding area. I honestly don't know what happened to that guy. But I know that that the cop and his buddy that went up that aisle came back down real quiet. So my heart goes out to that dude. But yeah, when I hear stuff like this, all I can think of is how many things I didn't see. You know, this is just one person's eyes. And there were a lot of buses, man. This was over 1,000 people arrested. Scary thought. So eventually we arrive at our detention area. Now the bus doors open. We all get pulled out single file. And I'm already inside a warehouse. So giant garage doors have opened. The bus is driven in, and I'm indoors now. That'll give you an idea of the size and scope of this place. It is the size of more than one football field, for sure. I later came to find out that it was a film studio. You all right, man?
Yeah. It's tough hearing this.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
And just so people are aware, this isn't something that Ben and I have been friends for 20 years, but this isn't. We've never gone into this depth, which was another reason why I
really want to talk about
to be a part of this.
I didn't really want to talk about it when it happened, right? Like,
yeah, and then afterwards, it's like, why? You know, you kind of forget about it, you know, and you don't want to ask a lot of the really uncomfortable questions. And I saw the album cover. That was enough for me to be like, I'm not sure I want to know
Did you
what
want
the fuck
details after
happened.
that? Yeah, totally, totally.
You know?
Mm-hmm. So anyway, we arrive at this warehouse, and it turns out it was a film studio. So down on Cherry Beach near the waterfront, there's all these giant warehouses that have been repurposed for filming. You know, Toronto's Hollywood North, as they say. So
I
there's
know
a lot of
exactly where you're at. Yeah.
So there's a lot of like just empty spaces. So here's the other thing that I want to highlight. So let's just run down the tally here. We have hundreds of cops bust in from other places, all armed fully with riot gear. We have a long range acoustic device that is employed, not for the purposes of
Delivering a message.
well, just for delivering a message. So it wasn't used for any sort of violent purposes, but it's still there. It's still usable, right? So we have access to that. Only a couple ambulances available, even though clearly through what I witnessed, there's more necessary than that. And they can rent coach buses, dozens maybe, to transport over 1,000 people across the city, all fully equipped with cages, the whole nine. And they've already got the first and last down on this giant ass warehouse to detain people. So you want to tell me that they didn't plan this? They didn't expect something to happen? That they weren't expecting a giant mass arrest? Like, it's a crock of shit. You don't do all this. You don't spend all this money unless you plan on filling those cages, man. It's just the way it works. You need a justification for the money. So I get put in this chicken wire cage, sort of temporary in-between space, sort of like a limbo. People are moving in, people are moving out, and everybody's asking, you know, it's the standard thing when anybody who's been arrested and been put in a holding cell, standard thing where it's like, what did you do? What are you in for? You know, that kind of shit. So we're all just kind of comparing notes and stuff. And that's when I found out how bad I was injured. Because as soon as I got in, people were like, whoa, what happened to you? I was like, I don't know.
How did they look?
There weren't very serious injuries, but I found out why. Shortly after I was put in that cage, I was pulled back out, put in a seat next to Baseball Eye. We were in line to see a medic. So he went in first. I didn't see him again. I really hope that he's well. I hope he's okay. But when I went in, it was a small trailer, like a movie trailer. You know what I mean? There was 2 doctors and 2 police officers in the room. The 2 cops are just kind of milling around. I don't know what they were there for, security or some shit. 2 doctors are administering to people's injuries. So I get sat down in a chair. The doctor's going through, checking out my nose, checking out my face, and he's mumbling some, like, oh my God, this is brutal. I can tell that both doctors are quite exhausted. I don't know how many people they'd already dealt with before I got there. And the doctor that's
Do we know around what time this is?
I got snagged just before sundown, so I'm guessing around 6 o'clock. Actually, the last text message, so I was in contact with my buddy throughout all this. And the last message I sent him was, when the sun sets, I'm going home. And it was about 15, 20 minutes after that I got grabbed. And that was at 5:30. So I'm guessing around 6 o'clock I got grabbed. This is probably around 8 or 9 at night. Because there was my information, having me in that paddy wagon and then transporting me across the city, which is at least a half hour, 45-minute drive. So I'm guessing about 8 o'clock. So this guy is checking out my injuries and, mumbling how frustrated he is about this whole situation. I can't imagine being a doctor in that position because, this goes against everything you stand for, right?
Yeah, I mean, he probably had MASH flashbacks. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Without the jokes.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So the doctor's checking my eyesight, making sure that I'm clear-headed, and he says, are you seeing any flashing lights? What day is it? What's your name? All that. Checking my cognitive stuff, and I check out. So he He says, your injuries are quite severe. I think you should go to the hospital. And I said, am I going to die? He's like, no, but you are likely concussed, and it will be very dangerous for you to sleep. So it would be best if you could be monitored by doctors during this time. So I say, if I go to the hospital, do I have to come back? And he says, yeah, probably. I said, I'm staying then. I want to get this over with. Now, again, I'm an idiot. So I'm thinking, if I die, at least it's in police custody and something can be done about this shit. That's where my head's at. So then he says, well, at least take these 2 painkillers. And I looked right at the cops and I said, I'm not taking any medication until I have my testimony under me. I don't want any excuses about, I didn't recall things correctly, or, I embellished things, or I was.
You were under the influence.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what he was trying to give you? Was it just like aspirin or
Advil? Yeah.
Okay.
Aspirin wouldn't help because I'm bleeding and it's a blood thinner, so you got to give me ibuprofen for the pain.
Okay.
So anyway, I look right at the cops when I say that, and they start kind of shifting their feet. They're like, "Uh-oh, this guy knows his rights." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, the doctor kind of cleans up my shit and checks out my nose one last time and says, "This is a doozy. You should definitely go to a hospital after this is done." I said, no problem, man.
It's probably interesting to note that a lot of the police officers who were there on the facility probably didn't know what the front lines were like. So all they're seeing is the aftermath.
We're just about to get there.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
We do have to wind down, but yeah,
Absolutely.
let's
Absolutely. So I get put back in this chicken wire cage for a bit, and then they take my mug shot. And they're cracking jokes. They're having fun. The cops there. They're like, "Oh yeah, smile." And then I get a cop, snags me, pulls me into a room privately with him and another police officer, and they perform.
Are you still tied up?
No. The zip ties have been removed, but I am no longer without a police escort present from this point forward.
Okay.
So I get pulled in a separate room, and they said, "Okay, we're going to do a stage 3 search. Take off all your clothes." Yeah. So I stripped down.
Completely naked?
Butt naked. And then they say, "Lift up your junk," and they flash a light, and then turn around, spread your cheeks, flash a light, and they tell you to put your clothes back on. Now, I have not been charged with anything contraband related. I haven't even been charged. I haven't even been told why I'm arrested.
Yeah, and you also haven't been told your rights.
That's correct. Yeah. That is correct. Now, they might have been mumbled to me at some point during the beating. I don't know. But I can tell you that I didn't agree to them. I didn't understand my rights, which is the other half of this fucking thing. When they talk about
of course it is.
Yeah. So anyway, I knew exactly what was going on there. They were trying to dehumanize me. They're trying to make me feel like an animal. So word to the wise for those that end up on the wrong side of a police officer: look in their eyes. The one thing that separates humans from animals is that we look in each other's eyes when we speak. It's much harder for someone to deny your humanity and your personhood if you look them right in the eyes. I don't know why. It's a psychological thing, but it is an effective way of getting at least into their head, so that they're not treating you like a monster. So once this search is done, I put my clothes back on. The whole thing was filmed, by the way. There's a camera. They pointed it out to me. So that's probably in some, weird porn dungeon somewhere. So then I get run around a bunch at this point. I get moved from, trailer to trailer, talking to staff sergeants. Oh yeah, no. He hasn't got his information yet. So processing, he has to go to processing. We go to processing, and the staff sergeant's like, no, he hasn't done his testimony yet. He's got to do his testimony. So the cop that's leading me around, which is one of the ones that did the search for me, to get back to what you were saying about some of these cops weren't on the front lines. This guy is getting real turned around, confused, and he's just trying to follow orders. He's just trying to do what he's told to do. So he turns to me and he says, I'm really sorry about all this. I know it's complicated. I know it's confusing. I'm trying to do the best I can. I apologize. And I was like, don't worry, man. You're doing fine. This is a chaotic situation. I'm trying to help the cop feel better about this while, my face is throbbing. It's just insane. And so I start laughing. And he's like, what's so funny? I was like, I can't believe I'm consoling you right now. And he goes, this is my first day. Yeah, this is first day as a cop.
But let's be fair. This is your first day as a real victim too. So maybe. Is that what you said?
This is my first day. I said, yeah, this is my first day as a criminal. So we're learning together. Yeah.
What a journey we're going on.
That's right. Yeah. He was. I will say this though. He was a really nice guy. I think he was just someone who had bought the same lie I did. And he thought he was on, the good team. I think we both had an eye-opening experience that day. I really hope that cop is doing the right thing right now. So eventually, the runaround is over. I have given my testimony, and my information is in process. And I'm going to be put in a spot where I'm going to wait until I get my phone call. So I get passed through this metal detector, and as I'm going through it, the staff sergeant, there's a line of us all going through, and there's a staff sergeant that's like, hey guys, I know this is a crazy thing, none of us expected this to happen, but we're going to get through this as fast as we can. On the other side of this detector, you're going to be put in a cell with one or two other people. You're going to get food, you're going to get water, and very shortly after that, you're going to get a phone call. You can call whoever you like, and you can talk for as long as you like. And once it's over, you're going to get into your holding cell, and we're going to transport you to the courthouse when the time comes. We have a lot of people to get through, so just be patient. This could take longer than you expect. This guy's jovial, friendly, polite. I'm like, oh, good. It's finally over, right? Because I'm dumb. So
okay.
I go through this metal. Yep, go ahead.
I think we're probably going to have to stop there.
Sure.
And the reason is I think that these videos have to be limited to 2 hours by YouTube. So we're going to come back. We're going to do a part 2, and we're going to get into what happens from this moment on and certainly the aftermath.
Yes.
So I hope that all of you guys have listened and have taken in what was said. And I really, please, I'm not even going to ask you to like or share or do any of that kind of shit. I would like to hear that you share and because this is a story that I feel needs to be told. Obviously, this is a different situation, but it's a similar situation, and so we're able to get our heads into what is happening. So please share, sort of, but also comment. We are interested.
One last thing?
Yes, please do.
Okay. One last thing I want to say is the reason that I feel this story is important to be told right now is that what we're seeing with law enforcement currently is 10 years down the road from what I witnessed. Mm-hmm. So this is a point on a very long line that started before I showed up and is continuing now. And if you really want to grasp what's happening, this story is part of that. Yep. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Ben. I really appreciate you telling me this, and please, everyone, show up for the next one, and we'll get everything to you.
Thanks
normally, I'd have some. Yeah, no, absolutely. Normally, I'd have some tagline or whatever, but I'm gonna have to go to the only one that works right now, and that is, my name's Chuck, and I give a fuck. We'll talk again soon, guys.